You're listening to the Empowering Process podcast with your host, Gail Kraft. Listen as she holds frank discussions around how your purpose, being present, and trusting your power impacts your life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, leader, or developing your vision, you'll find wisdom and insights you can utilize right now. Welcome your host, Gail Kraft.
Yes, okay.
Hello, everybody. Gail Kraft here from the Empowering Process podcast. Thank you for joining us again. And with me is a dear friend now, someone who I have met who has been miraculous, Michael Whitehouse. Now, Michael is the guy who knows a guy. What does that mean? So his story is in 2014, he moved to Groton, Connecticut. He knew nobody at all. Within a year after diving into networking groups with both feet, he was the major connector in the local community, a major connector. Think about that for a minute. In 2020, we all know that glorious year, he went global and began connecting entrepreneurs, investors, speakers, and others around the world to people they need to know. He offers his services as a networking concierge, making connections and building strategic alliances around the world. He is the host of the Daily Morning Motivational Podcast, which you need to listen to, and the Neurodiversity Superpowers Podcast, which I've been on, which is awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Michael. And we're going to talk about finding focus when things just didn't work for you, right?
Focus. That's definitely one of my expertises. Yeah.
So I have a little story because I can be very focused, and here's the deal. When I'm focused, literally, I don't even know that you exist. I was in an office and I was training someone, and they were literally sitting across the table from me, facing me. Someone else came in and left a bunch of papers on my desk, giving me instructions as to what to do while she's on vacation. And then she left for vacation. The girl across from me looks at me and she goes, "You are hilarious." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "You didn't hear a word that Diane said to you." I said, "Was Diane here?" That's how focused I can be. On the other hand, I am like everybody else. I have squirrel syndrome. Something interesting comes across. I'm going to start a sentence and we're going to be on a completely different subject and I'll lose track.
Yep. Well, and I'm rarely able to get into that really hyper-focused state because I have so many things on my calendar, which is one of my challenges, which is why I like working Saturday mornings, because I never put anything on my calendar Saturday unless it's like a family thing or an event. Yeah. And so if I wake up at whatever time Saturday morning and I'm inspired by something, I can come downstairs, go to the office and work on it until I'm done or until I'm tired, either way, and really focus into it and just plow through and get things done. But I'm rarely able to do that because most of my work is meetings. It's calendarized. And so I can't be like, "No, I'm busy. I can't do this now." This is when the meeting is. So I enjoy that focus state. I don't get into it as much as I'd like to.
Yes, well, because of what you do, I mean, I have started popping in and out of different types of meetings where I started to see you, right? And it's different types of networking. So we're going to talk a little bit about being uncomfortable in corporate and what happened and why you started doing what you're doing, because I think a lot of people can relate to that, but they're ashamed to talk about it. I can't leave this job. It's paying my bills. Right. I have a mortgage. I have a child going into college. I have, school is coming. I have vacations. I have a car.
Yeah. And actually for me, I was never in corporate. I was never successfully able to get a regular corporate job. In fact, I had my first 5-figure year, as in over $10,000 at 27. And I believe my first 6-figure year will be at 42. That would be this year. So I never had the golden handcuffs of that kind of job because part of with ADHD, focusing on the Byzantine process of getting a job just this wasn't going to happen. I graduated college and they're like, okay, so you got to do this and fill out this form and then write this thing. And what I'm really bad at is anything that involves do a thing and then wait for response and then do a thing, because I lose my focus on it and the response comes in. I'm like, wait, what was I doing? What
was that
happening?
about?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm having this huge problem with Verizon right now. I got a new phone and I keep having to call customer service and they say, oh yeah, it's going to take us 2 days to do that. And then we'll follow up with you. And they never do. And I've now had this phone for a month and they haven't set it up, and it's their fault. There's a system. They're not registering it from Google system or something.
Oh, yes. I've seen that saga unfold on Facebook.
So I keep and I get more and more frustrated because my old phone is, failing slowly.
Right.
And finally I got a little bit upset about it on Saturday, and my wife said, just give it to me. And she's going to take it. She's on the account. She's going to deal with it and switch the phone over, which is actually why I'm really excited, because the goal is by the end of this year, she's going to be joining my company. Because I am, I'm ADHD. I'm also high I, high D on the DISC profile.
Right.
She is high C, high S. I took a DISC profile score and I got a 7 out of 100 on C. So C, if you don't know, is the detail, the system building, the accounting, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I got 7 out of 100. I'm like, that seems a little high. Are you sure about that? 7?
7?
And so, but especially if I can sit down and work a process and, make a to-do list. And that's actually what I've done. I've built all kinds of systems.
Right. Because you don't want to do it. You want the system to work.
Yeah. And I actually had someone who said you should build a course, a program, which is how to be you. And I'm like, what do you mean? They said, you have all these systems, a system for your email, a system for your calendar, a system for your I have all these systems, which, because they're systems, they're replicable. That other people hear about that, they're like, oh, I never thought of doing that. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. And I built them because I need to. If I don't have this kind of prioritization system, action tracking system, all these different things, I'll never get anything done, never get anywhere. But while talking to me, you can tell I have ADHD. I don't have a lot of the common things, like I don't miss meetings. I don't lose my keys. I don't, forget. I do come up with projects and then forget about them. It's funny. Things go on my website and then I forget it's there. And so I'll go on a podcast, someone will search for something and read a bio. I'm like, what was that bio from?
Oh my God, I did the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that was good. When did I write that?
Yeah. Yeah. But so, or I'll get on a podcast, you record it and it comes out 6 months later. I'll go back and listen to it, like, oh, I remember the 3 days when I thought that was my project I was working on. Yeah.
Right.
And of course, that's what I'm talking about for 20 minutes in the podcast, is this thing that was a flash in the pan at that moment. So I do a bit of that. But once something is in the system, on the board, in the action lists, then it's systematized to make it happen, because otherwise it won't happen. And one of the things I found is a lot of these neurodiversity coping strategies are really effective neurotypical coping strategies too. It's just, I know my memory's bad. I know I'm not going to focus on things. I know I'll get distracted. Neurotypicals, their memory is slightly better than mine. Their focus is slightly better, but it's good enough they trust it. Oh, I'll remember that. I'll just write down a post note. It'll be fine.
Michael, I'll be in the car and have a brilliant idea.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't record it, 5 minutes later when I'm parking the vehicle, I forget what it was. Right? And I'll be like, this is awesome. Universe, thank you so much. Don't give it to anyone else. I'm going to hang on to it. I promise I'm going to hang on to it this time. Right? And I'm looking for my phone to record it. And then I'll be like, oh, some music is on. Oh, that's pretty good. I like that tune. Right? Right?
Yeah.
Though I don't have ADHD, you and I have talked about my dyslexia. So that's a little bit of where I go. But if we all have the squirrel syndrome, it's just at what level do we have it? And what I love, and so if we had no idea where this conversation was going to go, and I don't care. What I love is that you know your weaknesses, and you know how to shore them up. Yep. One of my pet peeves with corporate America is, hey, here is your annual review. Here are the 500 things you have done excellent this year. Here's the one thing that's your weakness that you need to work on. Excuse me? Excuse me. I did 5,000 amazing things, and you want to focus on something that's not in my wheelhouse.
Yep.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's a question of strength orientation versus weakness orientation. School is atrocious for this. School is
Yes.
all about weakness orientation. If you're bad
Yes.
at math, what do? An hour a day more math.
Right?
What? That's like my wrist hurts, so I'm going to exercise it an hour a day more.
Right. Rather than, okay, well, let's give you a way to make it easier for you to get through the basics.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Where strength orientation is, your strength is this. You're a great artist. That's probably where your career is going to take you. That's probably where you're going to be good. So let's teach you enough math to function.
Right.
Let's teach you how to effectively deploy a calculator. Let's
Right.
teach you the basic concepts that you're going to need. And then focus on how do we move you from 10 to 100 as an artist. And I really go. And that's what entrepreneurship is all about.
That's
what's
exactly
the one thing you're good at. And now let's drive into it. Now, how do you delegate or eliminate any of these things that are at your strength? Or if you can't afford to delegate and you can't eliminate, systematize some kind of process. I have so many things that are either systems that I run or actual automation. I have a lot of actual automation. There's usually some human element, even in my email systems. There's a lot of things I need to like put the email in from, like Calendly and my email system aren't actually linked. Just looks like they are.
Thank you. Why is that?
Because my email system is limited, but I don't pay for it, so that's why.
No, I pay for it and it still doesn't link, so don't bother paying for it.
Yeah, my excuse, I don't pay for it, so I paid once for life, and that's why I keep using the one I use. But so I need to stand in the middle and copy it, but it's proceduralized, so I don't need to think about it. I just need to at some point go cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste. Boom. So it's about creating those systems so that I, as much as possible, don't have to work on those things. And I now have a virtual assistant. So morning motivation, what I do is I sit down and I record a bunch of stuff, and then I upload it to Google Drive, and then Kendra makes it podcasts. So everything that isn't my voice on that recording is Kendra.
See,
I name the episodes, I record the episodes, and then she uploads them. She writes the copy around them that makes you want to listen. She sends out the emails. That's all her. So for me, it is just the fun part and then handing someone money to do the other part. And it works out really, really well because I don't have to do that. And I found someone who's good at that stuff so I can delegate effectively. And in fact, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm afraid to delegate because I don't know if they'll do as well as I do. She does it better than me. Because when I used to do it.
Honestly. Yeah. So we can go on and on about delegation, because I've delegated, not delegated, pulled back, delegated, been successful. Then they go into a different business. I'm like, no, no, don't go. And it's all about the things that I don't like doing.
Yep.
And one of the high level systems that I've created for myself is every day has a specific focus. So Mondays.
I just recorded a podcast about that. I think it's coming out on Saturday.
Okay, so Monday's motivational Monday.
Okay.
Tuesday's tenacious Tuesday. So if I started it on Monday, I have to chew the bone.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Oh, you're
Wednesday. Wednesday's Walkabout Wednesday. That's a good networking day. That's when I want to go out and meet people. Right. I might be in other networking, but this is when I physically go out and meet people. Right. Thursday is technology Thursday. So that cell phone problem isn't going to be looked at until Thursday. I'll suck it up until Thursday because technology will suck your time.
Yep.
And then Friday's Financial Friday, where I balance my accounts, pay bills, send out bills, invoices, and so forth. And Friday is a very low meeting day so that I can do some additional meetings that I didn't do on Wednesdays. So
interesting.
So it's that kind of,
Yeah. One of the challenges I've run into is that I've figured out a lot of like how to manage this time, except for one slight problem, because you said low meetings day. Monday is my low meeting day, but I can't. I tried to clear it, and then I realized it actually ends up being the day when I put things like podcast interviews that I want to do sometime in the next 6 months.
Right.
Because my job is meeting with people.
Right.
So I can't just meet with less people, because my networking concierge, people hire me to make introductions for them to people they need to meet. That only works if I'm meeting a lot of people.
Right.
So,
and so it's the other stuff
yeah,
that you need to delegate.
yeah. And so that's, and a lot of, I do need to delegate that, but that requires me to get to the point where, one, it's standardized enough that I could delegate it, or to find someone who's understands what I'm doing well enough that I can say, like I want to get to the point where the way I run a summit is I come up with the concept and the date, and then have my summit person run it.
I have someone for you.
Really?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes. She's one of my excellent people who went on to a different life. She was my Infusionsoft queen, and now she runs summits around the world.
Interesting. Yeah, because what I'm finding with the summits is most of what hangs me up is the copy. Like running the summit is relatively easy. It's writing all the promotional copy and even following up with people to make sure they do the JV management of them is fine. It's the writing all the copy and making sure they have all the materials and all the details and that kind of stuff. And then having someone actually run the details of the summit at runtime would also be cool, but I don't need it.
No, but I'll tell you, thank you very much for showing up at my virtual or my speakers event that I held.
Yes.
That was so much fun because that was the first time in years that I have run a speakers event. I used to do it all the time when I lived in San Diego. And it's so much fun. See, I love running stuff like that. It's almost like I like to be the hostess.
Yeah, that
right?
is, I would love to run something like that. And I just haven't had the focus for it. Although I do know at least one of your speakers made over $1,000.
I know.
On that stage because I paid it.
And you're not the only client she got.
Yeah. That is not surprising.
Yeah. She, in fact, that's who I'm having. We're going for a few drinks at a winery. We're doing a wine tasting on Friday.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. So, her and I are actually going to talk about running speaker events a couple of times a year.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I've thought about running those kinds of events, but so this is where I'm reining in the ADHD.
Right.
Is I look at it and say, okay, where does my money come from?
Right.
Last year there was no money. I was making $250 a month for my business, and I was living off Uber. So I couldn't measure things on where does my money come from and how much like my revenue streams does this look like?
Right.
So I chased off in all these different directions. Now I'm like, well, a live speaker event in Connecticut does not look anything like any of the things that my money comes from.
Right.
And probably doesn't synergize well into any of the things my money comes from. So while I'd really like to do it, I can't actually put that much energy into it. But the plan is get more people onto the team, starting with my wife, so that I can do more of the come up with a concept, hand it to somebody who executes on the concept, and then work on the next concept.
And, and the fact that you were even able to string those things together are amazing. Right? Now, for me, the events that I would run, I always got clients from those events. Kind of like the person that you hired, and she's very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you give value, but you don't give the horse away, right? You give value and you say, there's the horse. You could be riding that horse. Isn't it a beautiful horse? No, oh, you don't want the white horse. Oh, you want a Palomino. There's one right there. Right. Right. And then deliver, right? It's all about delivery. And I honestly think what you're doing, Michael, is it's unique enough that nobody else is doing it yet.
I have met 4. I met the 4th one last week. I've met 4 people who do it, the networking concierge, and there's very people who would want to do it. So it's not like people are going to flood into the market and start crowding into my space. But it doesn't. I love doing it. It doesn't scale well because it's hands-on.
Right.
So I couldn't take on 100 clients. Now the clients I take on pay me pretty well, so it's definitely a great base. They are amazing people. And honestly, I make a lot of connections from my clients.
Right.
Because all my clients, there's an assumption, and most done for yous, if you hire a done for you, it's because you don't know how to do that thing, you don't want to do that thing.
Right.
You know, if I hire a done for you summit runner, they're going to run a better summit than I am. A lot of my clients are as good at networking as I am, but they're better at something else. My joke when people say, how'd you get to be such a great networker? I say, I'm not good at anything else. So the thing I'm best at is networking. So that's what I charge for.
Right.
So some of my clients, they're as good at networking as I am, but they're better at mindset, or better at teaching manifestation strategies, or better at brand building, or whatever it is. So it doesn't make sense for them to be a professional networker, because they could be a professional brand builder and make more. In some is closer wheelhouse. Networking is just kind of what they're good at. So it's all about, you know, being the best, or doing the thing you're best at. So most of my clients who pay me to network for them are as good, if not better than me at networking, but I do it full time, or a good chunk of my time, and they don't want to. So it makes sense for everyone, because everyone's working at their highest, you know, at their highest level. And then the other thing I'm good at is coming up with ideas, but not executing on them, which is not something that works well as a startup. But it works fine as a second phase, because then it's come up with ideas and have other people execute on them.
Right. Exactly. So, and I have to tell you that my most successful clients that I've had as a coach, now I started telling you that I am not a business coach. I am definitely transformational, and I say master because I have been doing this for a long time, and I'm pretty good at what I do. And we talk a little bit about strategy. We talk a little bit about this GOALS thing, but we really talk about them. And my most successful are the ADHD guys, right? Because I don't take the typical approach, right? And so there's this one guy, the first meeting we had, I've dealt with coaches, Gail. I'm not too sure how this is going to go. You know, you're going to give me the smart thing. And I'm like, no. Okay, you're going to tell me to envision what I'm going to do in the next 3 months. I'm like, no. He goes, oh, so what are you going to do? Right. And then he's like, I like it. That's different. I'm like, I'm going to do what you need me to do, not what a book tells me to say to you.
Yeah.
I'm going to get to know you and then figure out what you need and then give it to you. Ta-da!
Funny how that works. Yeah. It's funny. Like when I do coaching, so I don't advertise coaching at all. I believe the coaching page on my website might still be up, because nothing ever comes off that thing. My website has attics and closets. But I have multiple coaching clients because they have approached me and said, hey, could you coach me in this? So, you know, I've got someone I'm coaching in networking, which that makes sense. Yeah. I've got someone I'm coaching on their business in general, in a field that I know nothing about around their business.
Doesn't matter.
I've got someone that I'm coaching on open relationships. I'm their open relationship coach, because I have experience in that field, although I don't have personal experience this decade, but I have personal experience in the past and a lot of anecdotal knowledge and contacts from others. Like I have this jack of all trades knowledge of different things. And so people can say, hey, you could teach me that? And I'm like, sure, you pay me, I'll teach you. Yeah, I'm happy to hand that up. I'm actually, this is that thing where I talk about the program I'm currently doing, and I'll listen back to this later and be like, was that what I was doing then? When was this recorded? August 2022. Just gonna mark that right now. So when I listen back, I'm like, when was this recorded? So I have this program I call the As Yet Unnamed program, because I'd run into somebody and they'd be stuck, with something that I could explain in 20 minutes. And with that 20-minute explanation, they'd be like, not stuck anymore. And so you don't want to be like, hey, I got a solution, give me $500.
Right.
I'm going to talk to you for 20 minutes and solve everything, because that doesn't really feel right. But I also don't want to just give them time for free, but I don't want to leave them on the side of the road. So I came up with this idea. I was block out an hour a week, Wednesdays, 11 a.m. And I'll charge $25 a month to come into this group call. Come, don't come. I don't have an agenda. I don't take notes. There's no curriculum. I'm there. You ask questions. I answer them. Whatever you want to know. And so I charge $25 because it's more than nothing and less than something you think about. Which is funny. So actually, I made it free for a bit, and I had someone who wasn't comfortable coming for free because he's like, well, now I feel like I owe you, and
I totally agree.
yeah, but he couldn't afford more. So when I did 25, he's like, that's the right amount. 0 was too little. 100 was
Right.
too much.
Right.
Or no, he actually said 97 was too expensive and 0 was too expensive. Because if it's $0, it's something else. So 25 was comfortable. But I'm now realizing I know all these things. We're talking about these systems. I know how to set up. Yeah, I know. Have you ever read the book American Gods?
No.
Okay, so it's by Neil Gaiman, who also did Sandman. American Gods is also a TV series now. Neil Gaiman has made some really good things that turned into TV. Anyway, so in American Gods, one of the main characters is Odin in the modern. It's about all the mythological figures from various cultures being actually real, but living in a world where people don't believe in anything anymore. So Odin at one point is kind of like listing off things he can do. He's like, I have a charm that can make a woman fall in love with you instantly. I have a charm that can make you forget your sorrows. It's kind of listing these off, and I'm always reminded of that scene because I'm like, I have a technique that allows you to promote partners without having a massive unsubscribe rate.
So why don't you call your mastermind group, or whatever you want to call it, the Odin experience?
I do kind of have that look.
Yes.
That's an interesting idea. I think I have to explain that background to everyone, though. And Odin's not actually a good guy in the book. So I don't think that's the character I want to be.
All right, Thor.
Thor's not in the book.
Okay.
But yes, but I kind of think like, I have this technique for, I send to my email list. I send 5 emails a week plus my general list gets 6 emails a week plus 7 more if you're on the morning motivation list. I will promote on average 5 partners a week. My open rate is around 30%, and my unsubscribe rate is nearly 0.
That's fantastic.
Except for right after I run an event and bring in a cluster of people, there's a cluster of unsubscribes who are like, wait, more emails. But once everyone sorts out and figures out what they're getting, they all stay. And that apparently is really impressive, because most when they promote a partner and suddenly they get 9% of the list unsubscribes, or because it's unclear. That what I do is not complicated. If you're on my email list, if you go to guyknowsaguy.com and you sign up for it, you'll see it. You get 3 emails. You're like, oh, I see what you're doing. You can totally copy it. It's not hard.
Right.
And I got it from Ellen Finkelstein, so I didn't make it up either. But there's all these different strategies I have. My to-do list system, where I have a flexible but prioritized action item list, to-do list, whatever you want to call it, so that I can stay on top of getting the most important things done during the week. I've got that strategy. Right. I've got a daily podcast that has gone for 650 episodes. And almost I think there's been a few days I missed. Now that I have a VA, something goes in the feed every single day. The trick is if she doesn't have episodes, she reaches back into the archives and just recycles one, because you never know, because they're all evergreen. But I have systems for all these things so that I'm doing far more. So my intention right now is to raise the price of the program, but include with it at least one, possibly more, mini course, 5 to 10 minutes on how I do this, how I do that, how I do this. Because I realized, like, I went from a $0 or $250 a month business to a 6-figure business in 6 months.
Right.
So I'm not going to sell you a $10,000 course on how to build your 6-figure business, because I don't know that much, but I know what worked for me. Right. And I feel comfortable saying, give me $97 a month and I'll let you ride along with me, and I'll answer, I'll show you everything I'm doing. Because so often people will say, oh, I'm doing this. And you're like, what are you doing? Well, I did that. Okay. Could you tell me more about that? No. All right. How much money are you making this month? I can't tell you that. How many clients do you have? I can't tell you that. So there's really no reason I couldn't tell people in the inner circle how many clients I have, what my revenues are. Like, it's not like those are state secrets. And frankly, if someone were to look at my business and be like, I'm going to replicate everything you're doing. I mean, it'd be a little weird if they replicated like Neurodiversity Superpowers podcast, because that would be 2 podcasts of the same thing. But even then, like, I just copy all their guests. every time they have someone on the show, I'd reach out and be like, hey, you're on the other Neurodiversity Superpowers podcast. How about you come on mine too?
Right.
Because then the message gets out twice. Like if someone were to actually copy me onto themselves, assuming that was possible, they have the same strengths and weaknesses or whatever, and they decide to copy me. Now, unless they're trying to poach my individual clients, like, hey, you're working with Michael, but work with me instead. Which, again, if they copied me, they wouldn't do that.
Right.
So if they were to copy me, they'd be a great collaborative partner. A network, if I could find another networking concierge with 10 clients, and I've got 10 clients, and they give me their list of who they're working with and what they're looking for, and I give them my list of who I'm working with and what they're looking for. And as I find them, I'd be like, hey, I got a couple for you. Here you go. These are for your guys. And they toss them to me. Well, that means I'm more effective with less time. So I have no problem with someone copying anything I do, like my open virtual coffee. Someone copied that and had more success than I did. So then I can go back to her and be like, I love what you're doing. What did you do? Because I'm doing that and not getting the same results.
Right. So what are you doing differently that I'm not seeing? Right.
Yeah. So like, it's great to have people copy what you're doing, because then you can see how they do it differently and you can copy back.
Right. Right. And honestly, Michael, it is the highest compliment that you can have, that you can receive.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to kind of get over that, because as a coach, I would go to networking groups and I would start off with, hey, I'm Gail Craft and I'm an empowerment coach and this is my ideal client, which, by the way, I never say again. I don't do that anymore. But at the time I did. Right.
That's level 2 networking.
Oh my God. It was no. But the next networking group that I went to, where those coaches who were in the last one show up, guess what? They're all empowerment coaches with my client base, right? So I'll say, okay, so now I am a motivational speaker. Next meeting, they've all become motivational speakers, right? And, at first I thought, really frustrated. Then I thought, wow, these people have not found their voice yet. That they have to copy mine. And then, cool, they're copying mine. That's pretty awesome.
Well, and the place my mind goes is if they want to be like you, that makes them prospects.
That's right. Exactly.
Like, if they're copying you by just following you from room to room, you could be like, hey, why don't you just give me $500 a month? And I'll actually hand you the notes.
We'll do this officially. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you don't have to sneak around behind me writing down notes. I'll actually hand you the playbook.
Right.
For on purpose. That's kind of what I'm doing. That's my thought there is to have them to give people a chance to copy my playbook or the parts of it they want. And then also I'll get feedback on the playbook. Hey, I did this.
Right.
I used your open virtual coffee and it saved me 4 hours and I made $500. And I'm like, I never make money at my open virtual coffee. How'd you do that? Because I was using it for a different purpose. So I was like, oh, that's a different application. Oh, if I employ it this way, that'll work really well. Oh, interesting. So yeah, being copied is very powerful. And all I'm doing is selling, just basically selling access to my, it's like real-time mentoring. Usually mentoring is, I did this over the last 20 years. Let me teach you. This is like, I did this over the last 20 weeks. And here's what I'm currently doing.
Right. And we circle back. That's because with ADHD, you're not going to do anything for 20 years.
Yeah. No, I failed for 20 years. So that was pretty consistent.
Failure is a great motivator and a fantastic teacher.
Oh, I learned a lot.
You absolutely, if you haven't failed, and I know this is a cliche, then you haven't got off your ass and tried anything different.
Yep.
Right. And it's scary, and I understand that. And if you're afraid, then give me a call, right? Because we'll just NLP that crap right out the door. Because there's so much excitement in the failure, right? Because think of when you were on a swing as a kid. You wanted to be pushed so high that you were trying to go around, right? And that feeling in your stomach, that excitement, that tickle, that, oh my goodness, that loss of control is the fear that you have. It's the same thing. Right? And so if you take that fear and just put it on the swing and go for a swing, right? And just go for it. It could be so much fun. And that's what you do, Michael. Is an idea hits you and you go for it. And maybe you lose the idea 20 minutes later. Who cares? In an hour, it might come back.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and the challenge I run into is something I need to be careful with is too many ideas that don't synergize. So it's a matter of figuring out how do these ideas synergize together so that I'm not chasing after squirrels and never making anything and never actually getting paid,
Right.
and remembering why I'm chasing after these things.
Right.
So I used to chase squirrels because anyone could be the thing that would make me money to get me out of, because originally it was, first I was stuck in a miserable, like doing someone else's work. Then I was in a holding pattern in 2021 where I was driving Uber to pay my bills and trying to find where the business would take off. And it wasn't terrible, but it was kind of exhausting because I was working 7 days a week.
Right.
And finally decided, wait a minute, I could just not work 7 days a week because if I'm not making any money in my business, I could just do it less.
Right.
And
so then you started making money.
Right. Yeah. I set the drop dead date as basically January 1st, 2022. And I said, okay, I'm going to go to 4 days a week. So I'll have a day off. And that way I won't burn out. And that was exactly when I started making money. Was I'm like, either I've got to drop this Uber or cut a day out of my week. And of course that's when I was soon after able to drop Uber. I wasn't able to do it immediately, but I was able to do it like when I wanted to. So
Right.
I'd be like, oh, I need an extra $300 this week. Not I need to make my living
Right.
off this. And it's, yeah. And then some of that makes it more fun. Not like everything is coming from this one thing that's outside my control. But so during that time, like, oh, maybe I'll run a mastermind because that might get me the money. Oh, maybe I'll run this because maybe that'll get me the money. And now my main revenue comes from the networking concierge business. So I need to remember, oh, why am I chasing after this? And there's things like networking, the Neurodiversity Superpowers podcast, which I do because I want to change that narrative. It's a narrative that's not being shared. It's a story that's not being, or people are talking about it in a very different way, which is not as good for anyone. So I said, I'm going to change that narrative to something else.
Well, it's time to look at what we used to think as problems from a different lens.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're not problems.
Yeah. But so with that point, I realized like, this is going to be a time consuming hobby and mission, or is it going to tie into business? I don't really have time for a hobby. And then I realized the thing people want most out of this is to figure out what is their superpower. What is their strength? Because they're not achieving success. They hopefully know enough not to work in their weakness, but they're still not having it. So they're probably not working in their true strength. How do they find it? And once they find it, how do they maximize it? And then I thought, well, what if you take a dozen people who are mid-level successful and put them in a room together and have them share their experience with each other and learn from each other like a, I don't know, mastermind? And then I said, holy moly, I've got a business model. So I came up with these superpowers mastermind. It was originally the neurodiversity superpowers mastermind. And then I realized everyone has superpowers, neurodiverse or not, and everyone needs to find them and maximize them. So I dropped that first word. Now it's just superpowers mastermind for people to come together and share what it is that they want, what they're great at, help each other figure out what they're great at, help each other figure out how to maximize it, and ways around and all that. And then, of course, I figured out the Entrepreneur Summit kind of fits in with that too, because superpowers mastermind, neurodiverse audience, geeks, that seems like
that's the audience.
That seems like one unified audience, even though the two things came from totally different directions. So, and thus a business model. The podcast promotes the summit promotes the mastermind generates the revenue. And so it's a matter of saying, can I tie this together in some way? Can I bring this into alignment? Because I don't have time for a time-consuming hobby. I don't have time to do a podcast for fun, which, I probably should have thought about before I started the podcast. But I don't have time to do a podcast for fun. If I'm doing it, it needs to do something.
It has to fit into the process.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's an energy leak.
Right.
And then I'm achieving less.
So the point being that there is no point. The point being is that whether you fail, you end up driving Uber thinking this is going to be my life's work because I can't seem to make ends meet. Once you figure out what works for you
Mm-hmm.
and you trust it and you go with it,
Mm-hmm.
you can break through any barrier and surprise yourself at how well you can succeed. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, but also I want to go back to the mindset I had when driving Uber because that was important. And it wasn't I can't figure this out, so I'm going to drive Uber. It was I know I can figure this out, so I'm going to drive Uber. So if I was in the mindset that I couldn't figure it out, which is what I was before the pandemic, then I'm going to get a job. Because I can't figure my thing out. It could be 50 years. I don't know. Let me just go get a job, make a living that way, which never worked because they were always someone else's sales strategy, sales jobs, because I didn't have the attention span to anything else. And so I went from one disappointing sales opportunity to another. Whereas in 2021, I made a conscious decision of 2020, I'm going to follow my path. Somewhere is my opportunity because I keep seeing these opportunities and it seems like, oh, is that it? But I can't follow it because I'm in a job. Oh, is that it? Oh, I can't follow that because I'm in a job. So I said, all right, I'm done with the jobs. I'm going to do what it takes to bridge for as long as it takes. And at first I was government assistance in 2020 with all the pandemic stuff. And then that ran out and I still hadn't figured it out. And I said, all right, let me get into a sustainable place because I'm going to find it. I know it's there. I know I'm intelligent. I know I'm good at a bunch of stuff. I know that people are paying for this stuff. I just need to figure out where it connects together, and I need the time to do it. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, the mistake they make is they don't have anything to extend their runway. So they end up, at best, taking the wrong clients. So at worst, getting a job and then being stuck in that job, and the job exhausts them, and then they're kind of like the professional waitress who claims to be an actress.
Right.
I'm an actress. Have you ever been in a film? Well, no, but I'm an actress. I'm an entrepreneur. Oh, do you have a company? Well, no, about to start one because you look an awful lot like an office drone going to an office 40 hours a week and collecting a paycheck. So they do one of those two things, and taking the wrong clients even be worse because now they're burning themselves out as an entrepreneur.
And they hate that they're an entrepreneur.
Yep. And they're probably building a reputation as a mediocre entrepreneur too. Because their clients don't love them, because they don't love what they're doing. They're not working in their strength. They're not working with the right people. So I said, I'm going to do this gig work thing, and it's going to pay the bill. So I had flexibility. I could drive when I wanted to, as long as I wanted to. I could do what I also, when there are people in the car, I could hang out. I could talk to them, learn from them. I did a lot of coaching in the car. Turned out that at the time, my coaching rate per minute my rate per minute as an Uber driver was the same as my coaching rate per minute. Not that I sold coaching per minute, but when I broke it down that way, if I took someone on a 30-minute ride, they'd pay the same as if they'd hired me as a coach for 30 minutes.
Oh, you weren't charging enough as a coach, honey. Huh? You were not charging enough as a coach.
Well, for what I could offer as a coach at that time, I was. Right. I charge a lot more now.
Okay.
Yeah, you could not hire me for a ride for what you could hire me as a coach for at this point. But at that point, like my coaching skills were listening, maybe offering a little bit of advice, possibly some connections or things I'd heard about that you hadn't. I didn't have a lot to really lean on as a coach. But so that gave me the opportunity to first off educate myself while I was in the car, but also because I could listen to podcasts, audiobooks, and all the rest. But also there was no rush, so I didn't have to take the wrong clients. I didn't have to commit to the wrong programs. Right. And if there's something that was going to take 6 months to develop, I partnered with someone to run a summit, which turned out to be a flop, but I partnered with someone to run a summit, and it was like a 6-month planning cycle. And I could do that because I didn't say, oh my God, 6 months, that's forever. I don't have 6 months. I got to pay the bills this month. It was, okay, cool. Let's work. I can Uber for another 6 months. If there was a 4-month course, if there was whatever, I had the time. I wasn't thinking in this end of the month, end of the week mentality of we got to get done. It was okay, cool. And I found a way to make money that I was able to say that if I end up doing this for 20 years, I'm okay with it. If I could get out of it faster, that's cool too. But because I was able to get comfortable, I was able to find where I needed to go and where I really needed to go in 12 months.
Right. And it gave you, it took the stress away enough that you were able to really relax and figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people who are not happy with what they're doing, they fall into that trap of, but if I quit, then I won't be able to pay the bills. Right. And so you need to figure out, if you're not happy with what you're doing, you need to figure out what makes you happy, and then figure out how to, on a small scale, get that up before you leave. Clients who come to me who are starting an entrepreneurship, I really coach about at what point do you leave your job? Don't leave your job until you're at a point where it's like you were with Uber, right? You're with Uber until there was a point where, okay, I'm making enough money now that I can pay the bills. I'm sure I can sustain this.
Yep.
So
well, and the thing with Uber is you never have to leave it.
No.
I didn't leave Uber.
You just shut it off.
Yep.
Yeah.
And actually, a few weeks ago, I drove again because I missed it. I'm like, it's relaxing. There's nothing to worry about. Nobody's calling me. The app tells me what to do at that moment, and there's nothing to think about beyond that. And so actually as I was thinking about that, like, I kind of missed this. The next day, a notification pops up. Do 10 rides, get $100 bonus. I'm like, all right. Sure, I'll come back and do it. I did exactly 10 rides and stopped again.
All right.
But yeah, so, if suddenly everything fell apart and I needed to pay my bills with Uber again, I could do that.
Right.
Now, it's not going to be quite that easy once my wife comes and works for me and then the whole family's based in the business. But we have enough things going on that if things fell apart, I would be able to deploy resources and get some courses launched and push some other things. And, I know enough to know different actions I can take. Plus, of course, building up financial reserves and extending that emergency runway and all the rest. So,
of course, because business has its cycles, and you need to learn that. But Michael, we could go on forever, but I'm going to let you go. If people wanted to get in touch with you, if they wanted to hear more about the programs that you run, how would they do that?
Of course they want to get in touch with me.
Of course they do.
So they should go to guywhoknowsaguy.com. And at the top there is a place to put their email address. And when they do that, they will get an email with a digital copy of my book, which tells a story about how I became the guy who knows a guy and how they can basically copy all that. It's how to be me in 2019. And that will also connect them to that really great email list I was talking about earlier and get that newsletter that nobody ever wants to get off of. There's also a link on that page to my open virtual coffees and connection bonanzas, which are two other things I innovated because too many people wanted to meet with me and I wanted to meet with them too, but couldn't give over my whole calendar. And so they're a great way to connect with me and to connect with some other people in my universe as well. So that's guywhoknowsaguy.com.
And that's all free, juicy information. Thank you so much, Michael. And thank you for listening. This is Gail Kraft from the Empowering Process podcast. If there's something in this that resonated with you, let us know. If a question came up, let us know. We'd be happy to answer you. If you know somebody who could benefit from this amazing conversation, do share it out to them. And always, always, always like it, download it, subscribe. We love to hear from you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Michael. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.